I'm bringing you a little bit of an unusual story today. This is Ronan Farrow has written an article for the New Yorker. It's entitled "How the Elon Musk's Shadow Rule: How the U.S. Government Came to Rely on the Tech Billionaire and is Now Struggling to Rein Him In." So this article in the New Yorker is like a size of a book. I mean, if you want to read it, I would highly recommend you read it. Unfortunately, most of the part of the book that goes into pages and pages and pages might be stuff you've already read in the Elon Musk mission or the Elon Musk method, or some of the other books that have been written about Elon or longer articles. So a lot of old stuff that you already know. If you haven't read the Elon Musk mission or the Elon Musk method, maybe not. Maybe you should be reading those. You can pick them up, of course, on Amazon, or you can get them for free if you join Patreon. And then, of course, you might like this show and you might hit subscribe and notify and all that. Just anyway, can there be any doubt that the number one EV maker on the planet and the number one energy storage company Tesla, along with the only real choice for all things space, SpaceX, the massive communications company that is only going to get more massive, Starlink, and X, formerly known as Twitter, which intends to go well beyond social media to fintech, is there a chance maybe that those companies would have serious influence? Well, this article is not talking about influence. It's talking about actual power. The kind of power to save the Ukraine through Starlink and then threaten to withdraw the service. The kind of power to say no to NASA if they need a ride to the ISS. The growing leadership of the only really serious effort to end CO2 issues. You think maybe Elon would have some power. It's the power to call attention to the limiting factors and then have the government pass legislation to increase onshore manufacturing of chips, BEVs, batteries, and mining of strategic minerals. Would there be a CHIPS Act, the infrastructure bill, or an IRA if Elon hadn't called attention to the shortfalls that this country had in terms of the products necessary to bring us into the 21st century in energy and eliminate CO2 from the atmosphere as best as possible? Well, I mean, excess CO2 from the atmosphere. Not a chance. None of those bills would have even been suggested. It wouldn't have been an idea. It wouldn't have been a thought. Well, Ronan Farrow is not a fanboy of Elon Musk, though he does seem to be an admirer. His article covers much of Elon's life and business history. Again, that's already been chronicled in my book elsewhere. But he does come at the subject with a bit of cynicism. He's a reporter, after all, and that's what you're supposed to do when you're a reporter. He never crosses the line to say that we need to find some way to lock up Superman because even though he's a force for good, he might not be someday. He doesn't ever go that far. But this power of the U.S. does not end with the U.S. The world also has to pay attention. Musk has just proven that he can fly around the world and meet with the top leader of all the biggest countries on earth. And we're talking about 10 out of 10. I'm not 100% positive he can get a meeting with Joe Biden, but maybe he hasn't even asked. Apparently, Elon has had multiple conversations with Vladimir Putin. And even while it's clear that the Starlink dishes in the Ukraine are absolutely critical to any hope that the Ukrainians have of winning or even drawing to a stalemate, he still gets on the phone and can get Putin on the phone. The article suggests that Elon can basically get a meeting with anyone in the US government. The military needs him for putting satellites in orbit, for any real chance of getting boots on the ground on Mars, for blowing up asteroids, for establishing a base on the moon, for ferrying astronauts to the ISS, and they've given SpaceX a contract to create a point-to-point version of Starship that can deploy men and equipment anywhere on Earth in 45 minutes. Oh, did I forget to mention the Starlink is already and will clearly be by far the best way for the military to communicate for reasons it would take another hour to go through. You undoubtedly get this. But X, formerly known as Twitter, is very different from other social media. It's really more of a newspaper. If you are serious about the news, sports, industry-specific things that are happening, hobbies, etc., you don't go to Facebook. You don't go to TikTok. You don't go to YouTube for that info. No, And under Elon's leadership, does anyone doubt that X will soon be more important for news than the New York Times? I have no doubt in my mind of that. Of course, Elon wants Twitter to also be the serious side of all those social media sources too, a place where journalists and content providers will feel free to do their best work and get paid for it. Only this week, he put out a tweet and said, hey, journalists, if you want to do really journalistic stuff where you don't have to answer to an editor, you don't have to answer to an agenda, you don't have to answer to a national woke involvement. He didn't say all those things. I'm saying all those things. If you want to be able to say what's on your heart and then get paid for it, Twitter's the place to, I'm sorry, X is the place to do that. But Elon's X also wants to be your bank, your broker, your PayPal account, your lender. He also wants you to use X instead of email or messages. He also wants it to be the next YouTube or bigger than YouTube. It's just one more level of influence, or could we say is going to be another level of power. Now, what should worry these leaders more? That Elon succeeds at all these ventures and we didn't even, of course, talk about Neuralink or the Boring Company. Anyway, are things that are not yet. I mean, robots, Optimus. I mean, holy mackerel. Soldiers, Optimus. Anyway, should they be worried that he succeeds and creates massive wealth for the entire world, conquers CO2, and provides life-altering solutions to those with neural damages? Or should they be more concerned that he decides he's done enough? And then we can only hope that his seconds in command can keep executing on the ideas that he's put underway, kind of like Tim Cook at Apple. I mean, let's face it, at any moment he could say, all right, let me put my feet up, I'm going to Hawaii. Or are they possibly worried that Elon will eventually turn into the evil Spider-Man, or just start throwing his weight around when it suits him? We know that this is always possible with Elon. He does get, burrs up his butt, so to speak, and he does, 10 to 2 o'clock in the morning. He's promised, no more posting on X after 3 o'clock in the morning, but he gets excited, he gets interested, he gets enthusiastic, he gets passionate. And if he's got this much power and this much influence, could these folks be worried that, he can wield that influence pretty quickly? Well, let me know what you think. I didn't want to go into the whole article. There's so much more. This is, like I said, it'll take you, if you read the whole thing, it's probably about a 45-minute read. It's like a small book, really. I'm serious. So number one, in the comments, is this too much power in one person's control? Well, even if it is, what could be done about it? Do you have any theories about what we can do if you think it is too much power in one person's control? Or do you have a good feeling that it's Elon, and he won't get out of line? I mean, he's said before, he wants to be involved in AI. Why? So that it does good instead of harm. So we know his heart right now is in a great place. And he's, if you believe him, and I believe him, he wants to do good and not harm. So should we be happy that we have a benevolent guy who is taking over all of these different businesses and now yields this kind of power and influence around the world? Or should we just change the Constitution and let him become president? If he was offered it, he probably wouldn't even want it. So anyway, I think this is a fascinating aspect of the ongoing story. He is extremely powerful. He's going to get not less powerful, but more powerful as these companies become the very first 5 and 10 and $15 trillion companies. As these companies get more and more involved in artificial intelligence and deep language learning and deep learning by video, and as the dojo gets bigger and bigger and bigger and potentially starts renting itself out to the federal government for training, as the Starlink gets more completed and Starlink becomes way more important to all aspects of consumers, business, government, ships at sea, everything else. Because what? Because it'll be the only way that you can get, communication around the world. As the Starship becomes capable of doing point to point, as the Starship becomes capable of putting up satellites, putting satellites into orbit for a lower cost than it can now cost to send a package to by UPS from here to New York. We're getting into some very, very weird territory, and I'm really curious to know what you think about this article and about what has been proposed. So in the meantime, hit like if you found this interesting at all. And if you didn't, don't push unlike. Just tell me in the comments, Randy, stupid article, never do this again. I'll listen to you. You know, I respond, you know, I comment, and sometimes I listen. I mean, I always listen. Sometimes I change my mind about what I'm doing. Anyway, and then, hit subscribe and notify. You definitely want to hear Jeff Lutz tomorrow. By the way, you also want to go back yesterday, two great articles about, or two great shows or episodes about a Cybertruck. One at midday, that was earlier today. I'm getting confused now. Yes, earlier today I did one on Cybertruck. Anyway, I'll put a card. You can tell sometimes my days get a little confused because I'm doing 3 of these a day, and sometimes I'm doing them 3 days ahead. And so anyway, it gets really confusing. That's enough, except Patreon. Remember Patreon. If you haven't done Patreon yet and you think you're getting even close to $5 a month worth of value out of what I'm doing, it'd be a real help if you could help me out on that. All right. Hey, that's it. It's been great talking to you.
Click the link below to get your paperback, Kindle, or audiobook now.